In the afternoon, it's getting there again.
I thought they fixed all these traffic lights. I came
Yeah.
from Bryn Mawr Avenue. I got stopped at the traffic light at the
Dunwoody.
bank. No,
Oh.
the new BMT banks.
Oh, yeah.
So I got stopped at that traffic light, got stopped at the next traffic light, got stopped, and I thought they had these things sync much better. I'm never out at this.
Well, they're trying to prevent people from, if I do 50, I can get through all the lights.
Yeah.
So my life has been blown up because there's now a traffic light at Gradyville Road and Providence Road.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they had to do something because the traffic in the afternoon coming from Westchester Pike backs up almost a mile.
Yeah.
So they put this light in, but it's a sensor on it. And I go to breakfast at Country Deli in Edgemont from time to time, actually twice a week. And every time I get to that now, I'm like, okay, is it going to know I'm here? Right? Because if it adds 30 seconds to my trip, right?
Yeah. It's right, you got to time it. I guess we got Lisa on Zoom.
And
Hello.
Larry, I'm sorry, not, John Weaver, I saw him pop up as
Yeah.
well.
Everybody hit your button, turn it green.
And then can you make sure nobody's on as a panelist or an attendee? Okay. I might
Can you hear us?
Since I watch these meetings on Zoom, and you know who doesn't have their mic on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough sometimes even with it on, it's just they're sitting.
Yeah, they
back
sit
here
back,
and
yeah,
talking.
or they'll put the hand
Yeah.
up.
And you
And
know.
it's
especially
awkward
folks over
because
here.
sitting in Steve's seat for that long, like
Yeah.
you're kind of like, you're not trying to interrupt the meeting, but you're trying to get their attention to turn the mic on.
Well, we had that large meeting about a month ago where we had all the different members of the different families here. And I was online. I didn't hear jack. I mean, I heard nothing.
Members. Fine.
Almost put a piece of tape over them.
That was the 50th anniversary of The Godfather coming out.
Was it really?
Yeah, this past weekend. Had a whole story in the Times. They interviewed Al Pacino. That was his breakthrough.
I was not allowed to watch The Godfather.
What?
I was only 10 when it came out, but my father told me later, he's like, look, you know, we grew up in Hudson County, right? Everybody had a thing going. Everybody had a racket. Everybody had a thing. Everybody ran numbers at this and that.
Right.
Some guys did more than that as time went on.
Yeah.
He and my uncles, well, my father was gone before them, never watched The Sopranos, never watched Goodfellas.
Yeah, they want to hear it.
They didn't want to know any of it. Because, well, part of it, they know it's true,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I've always thought The Sopranos was a parody of a bunch of punks I grew up with. But my family wanted nothing to do with The Godfather, even though a friend of ours was in the wedding scene.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah. But I watched it later.
What town did you grow up in?
Promise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I grew up in Staten Island.
Where's that?
Staten Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we had family up in Bergen.
Bergen County and Staten Island back then were very similar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Staten Island always wanted to be part of Jersey.
Yeah, in fact,
Because they never wanted,
Yeah.
because New York City didn't give a shit about
No.
them. So they would, like, let's go somewhere where somebody cares.
They needed the firemen and cops to live somewhere.
Okay.
Exactly.
Giving us the.
It was that or Far Rockaway, Queens.
Ready to roll?
Go.
Yep.
All right, we'll gavel it in. Call to order today's March meeting of the Finance Committee of the Township of Newtown. Quick roll call. Mr. Skoukis. Present. Mr. Nabholz.
Here.
Mr. Fisher.
Here.
Ms. Pacell.
Here.
I know she hears us.
Here's Lisa. Raise your hand if you can.
Here.
Okay, you may be muted. How about now?
Can you hear me
Hold on
now?
1 second, that might be on our end. We're gonna flip the speakers real quick. Go to the Zoom one. Lisa, you got us?
Yep. Is it working now? Can you hear me?
All set.
Okay,
thank you very
here.
much.
John Weaver.
All right, let's stand for a moment of silence and pledge allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Everybody's had a chance to see the agenda?
Yes.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 5-0 in approval of the agenda. Any public comments, Mr. LaFiata?
I did not see any in the box,
Okay.
and there is nobody here to make.
All right. All right, may I have a motion, please, to consider approving the minutes from the February 16, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-love. Reports, Rich.
Sure. So I would like to point out that you see January and February on here, and they're not our reports in our normal format. As I'm sure this board is aware, we submit our budget document to the GFOA for grading for the budget award every year. One of the system limitations of the budget document is that I need to work in the year 2021, and our reporting feature is in the same software. So if I flip it to 2021, I would have the possibility of doing some damage to the budget book. So until that is submitted, which is going to be submitted on Friday, you just see a regular old budget report. So I just wanted to point that out, that they're not our normal reports. In addition to that, just because of the time of year and the way government accounting works, there is not a whole lot to report, just because in January and February of every year, the majority of our revenues, and I don't want to say the majority, but a good portion of our revenues and expenses actually get booked back to the previous fiscal year. So I'm just going to go over a very high level this morning. So I'm going to actually report on February, just because there really wasn't much activity in January at all. So to date, revenues are ahead by $889,000 and expenses are up $88,000 for a net increase of approximately $801,000. What's contributing to this is our real estate taxes are up about $750,000 in comparison to 2021. This is purely because of the bills went out earlier in 2022 than they did in 2021. As of 2/28, there's still $5.2 million to collect in general fund taxes, and this is compared to 5.6 at the same point in time last year. Real estate taxes is experienced a small increase, and when I say small increase, if we're comparing this to last year's, which was I believe about $1 million up. So our real estate transfer taxes are up about $51,000, but on the other hand, our LST is actually down about $3,400. And as I been talking to this board about, I'm trying to get with Keystone, our collection agency for LST, to figure out where the discrepancies are. But it's a project because a lot of these are done by outside payroll companies. So if I have business A in the township, it does not equate to business A on the Keystone. So it's a lot of scrubbing. So that is one thing that we're going to look into heavily in 2022. Why our LST seems to be trickling off a little bit. Overall, license fines and rents are up about $27,000, and this is because we were very thinking ahead this year. We got all of our annual bills, including our business registrations, our rental registrations, things along those lines, out much earlier in 2022 than we did in 2021. So that's, like I said, about a $27,000 increase. Charges for service saw an increase of about $17,000. This is a combination of an increase in zoning fees, subdivision and land development, and a small increase in our permit review fees. Public safety, which is our permit revenue, is showing about $100,000 in increased revenue. This is a combination of two things. First, like I just said, it would be our permit revenue. And the second is actually a decrease in our health inspection fees. The county last year made us aware that they would take over all the health operations for 2020 in 2022. So we didn't budget anything. So we didn't send the bills out this year. So we're about $15,000 behind. And moving on to expenses, like I stated before, there's not a lot going on with expenses just because a lot of them get booked back to the 2021, but expenses are down approximately $88,000. This is a combination of a few things. Obviously, we have our salary and wages adjustments for uniform and non-uniform, increases in various operating costs such as insurance, We purchased some salt in early 2022 that we didn't purchase in 2021. We're carrying an extra debt expense that we did not carry last year. It's actually the refinance. It's not an additional expense. It's actually a savings, but just by the payment schedule, we pay interest on a monthly basis versus a 6-month basis. So we're ahead of where we were last year. And the last thing contributing to the increase is the timing of some monthly payments to the library, to the fire company. But other than that, everything is right on track for where it was last year.
Question, Rich, back to the LST. Is AmeriHealth, could you give do you know, is there like a quick update in terms of where they stand on whether or not they're coming back in, they're falling in, that type of thing?
AmeriHealth is one of the ones that I'm particularly interested in, and they're one of the ones that I'm having a hard time figuring out the exact number of employees, because we know the number of employees that are supposed to be there, but because of the pandemic and the way things are, they're phasing their way in. It's very difficult to see if we're capturing every single individual, and that is something that I really plan on looking at in 2022.
Okay.
Because I know that they are one of the big
Yeah,
ones.
it's in
coming
flux.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I have a question. Do you expect any impact on this year's the existing budget due to like higher fuel costs, inflation, and wage pressures?
The answer is yeah. When we were budgeting, we always budget for cost of living increases, not only for employees, but for goods as well. It's something that we're really going to have to monitor throughout the year, because if cost of goods is up, it might mean that later in the year, we start to possibly ramp down expenses to match our revenues coming in. But that is something that we need to be hyper vigilant about this year in particular, with the way inflation is.
Steve had mentioned at one of the prior meetings in terms of, or it may have been a supervisor's meeting, in terms of trying to hire a custodian, I think was the one position. Has there been any progress in that regard, or is it still in flux? It is, but the township office is upstairs.
Yeah, you
Sure
can
you
go
can.
through,
Sure you can.
go through the back room.
No, it's fine. It's a public meeting.
There you go. That's
Good. Through the doors, make a left, up the stairs.
Oh, that was our first public comment. I got excited. Can you repeat the
Yeah,
question,
but
custodian?
Yeah,
So I believe you were asking where we're at in that process.
right. And so whether or not you're still running into the same friction.
So last year in the budget, we had 2 part-time custodians budgeted. And from what I've been told and what I know, we didn't get very much bite on that. So in this year, the 2022 budget, we moved it from 2 part-time to 1 full-time. And we got permission to advertise, I believe, on Monday. If not the meeting before that, I might be getting my meetings mixed up. So we're going to put it back out as a full-time position this year, which is budgeted, and see if we can get some bite on that.
And whether or not you'll get the, with the add-on cost and benefits.
Correct,
Whether
yeah.
or not you'll get a
Yep.
land. Okay.
Any other questions about the financial reports? Everything all right over there, Lisa? All right.
Good.
Okay, on the new business, if you guys don't, am I allowed to move the order of the new business items?
Why not?
Just want to make sure.
I believe-
Executive decision?
Yeah, I
All
believe
right.
so.
I just thought that what we're talking about, it just made sense for us to go ahead and just talk about a different order. So what I recommend we do is talk about the goals for 2022, all right? And then we go into the township newsletter issues. And you drafted your missive,
Yes.
okay? We'll talk about that as well. All right, so on the goal side, thank you, first of all. I can't remember who recommended this, but it's always a good idea. Does the township, Rich, and Stephen's not with us, so does the township have stated goals for this committee that it wants to do A, B, and C?
So that is the purpose of this line.
Oh, so
item.
you guys who recommended this?
So it's not
Okay.
just this committee, it is
Got it.
every committee that represents the township. We're coming back and saying, we believe that each committee should have goals that they achieve by the end of the year. These goals are going to be reported back to the supervisors on maybe a monthly, quarterly basis
Got
about
it.
where we're at. But we wanted to bring this up, get it in front of this board and start discussing some possible goals that we can form.
Got it. Thank you. I was wondering where the genesis of that came from. It
Yes.
certainly makes sense. Since we haven't had our annual offsite at the Rittenhouse Hotel for 4 days to discuss this yet, because of COVID, we haven't had a chance to do that. So has anybody thought anything about any of those goals? I have a few things that I've worked through in my small brain. Anybody so far?
Well, goals, you always want to have things that are objective and then or soft.
Correct.
Type of
And
things.
measurable preferably. too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of things like, having a minimum number of meetings that you're gonna get to attend, things like that. So put the onus on each member of the committee. If you're on the committee, you need to show up for the meeting. Whether or not we want to do that, is that appropriate? But that was one of the things that I thought of. And then that we have a monthly meeting other than, if we've got 12 months, we're going to have 11 meetings. We may not have a meeting in July or August, that type of thing. But setting some of those easy criteria
Okay.
so people will know, you need to get out there.
That makes sense. Attendance is a key thing.
Right.
Yeah. Especially given technology, if someone's on the road, they can still be here.
Correct.
Yeah, and just to go off what you guys were talking about, the township always tries to form SMART goals. Is everybody familiar with SMART goals?
No. What is
So
it?
I had to look it up just because I know the majority of the acronym, but they're goals that are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time bound. So if you actually on Friday, I believe it'll be out, some of the goals that this committee has talked about for the budget, where we originally started when Jim and I caught lunch that one day, and those are formed in SMART goal format. So I'll be more than happy to distribute that to this board to help with the process.
Yeah, and those are goals and we have to determine too, for this August tribunal, whether it is are our goals going to be simply stated to the functioning of this committee, or are they going to be what we're going to hold the township to? So, what's the thinking there, Richard? Do you guys want us to focus on ourselves or focus on our functional?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
And I know that's probably not the answer.
No,
but-
that's fine, because that's where I was coming from in my thinking. So, and not having data in front of me, the specific goals we have, our job, right, is to guide the township in its achievement of revenue goal, operating income goal, for lack of a better term, net income goal every year. That's our job. Top line, intermediate line, what we retain. So if we're focused on that as the primary, that's our primary functional goal. Secondary to that, right, we have a series of team goals or committee goals. Yours are well said. Having X meetings a year. I don't think it's inappropriate to ask for 100% attendance by each committee member. I think a goal we need to have, it's something I've thought about, is nice of you to re-elect me as your chair, but make that a rotating
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, positions should rotate.
Yeah, so every year we have a different person, assuming the 5 of us stay on, which
Right.
would be like retaining the 27 Yankees, but short of that, but rotating through each, a new chair every year. We could do it alphabetically. We could do it by height, which would take me out, although you and me, Alexis, are pretty close. But you get my point.
Yeah.
Right? So that's another thing I thought about. And any of you other folks?
Right,
Lisa?
I would say too, the development and monitoring of the budget, or, along with staff.
Yep. Okay. Get there, Rich?
is the relationship of our goals to the township goals. We need to know what, it's hierarchical. So what is it that supervisors said, and how does that relate to us? How do we work to support that goal?
Do we even have a mission statement? What is the
There's a
purpose of the committee? Like,
There's
do
a
we have
short
statement?
blurb in the township website. I looked at that. There is a
You're gonna
blurb
make me repeat it right now.
about
aren't
a sentence and a half that talks about advising and consulting with the Board of Supervisors.
Financial
on
matters.
financial matters.
Oh,
Something
are you
really
talking-
short.
I thought you were talking about the mission statement. I'm sorry.
No, not a mission
Like
statement.
a
but just
description
kind
of what this,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That is a possibility as well, forming possibly a statement that
And just embed it
sums
there.
this board up and
Mhm.
what this board's mission is. That would be, okay.
Can we add another one about long range financial goals? So working on, I think, because up till now, we talked about everything that is annual. Or I shouldn't say everything, but most of what we hit was annual goals. But should we also add one about long-term financial goals for the township?
Yeah, strategic. Yeah,
So almost along the lines of a full-blown capital improvement plan as well as long-term, long-range operating goals as well, not just capital.
right.
Okay. That gives me some direction. I can start throwing some things together. I'll circulate it to the
Yeah,
board
yeah,
before the
yeah.
next meeting and have everybody's comments, and hopefully we can
Yeah.
have another discussion about it next time and then formulate some goals.
Do you know at this point if any of the other committees have put together goals yet, or is everybody in process?
I know everybody's in process. Do you know if anybody has handed them in? And
Nothing's been finalized at this point?
nothing has been adopted by the supervisors at this point, if that's,
Got it.
yes. So I do believe the overall goal of these is, these are going to get all put on, you know, a nice fancy summary sheet.
Sure.
These are the committees, and then it will be presented to the supervisors and get their opinions and possible adoption of.
Got it.
so is this something that we'll take up on our next meeting as well? After you take what we have, we'll throw it together and we'll discuss it again.
I think that would be wise.
Okay, so let's throw that on as an agenda item for the next meeting. Okay.
Is
And
there
if
a short summary of what the stated goals are? You know, I know you had them to formulate the budget. Yeah,
How about I get them to you on Friday?
yeah, that's what, yeah.
Yeah, as I talked about, the budget book, I'm just trying to get it done at this
The
point.
budget's a malleable thing.
Got it.
All right, good. Any other discussion about that, folks? All right. By the way, these meetings go a lot faster now that Leonard's not in the meeting.
I was thinking Steve too.
And Steve too. Now that's a whole separate
Let's
conversation.
just have the bus at both of them.
All right, so the next thing, these next two things come out of me. I want to talk first the revenue model for the newsletter. And Rich, maybe you can give me a little bit of insight. We use a third party to produce the newsletter?
That is correct.
Okay. And if I remember right, that's something we started last year?
So we always used a third-party newsletter called In Community Magazine. It was with the
Yeah, I
school
know.
district as
I'm
well.
aware of that,
In
yep.
Community Magazine has since gone away. So we're more heavily relying on another source for our newsletters.
Got it.
And that's where this
Okay.
comes up.
Got it. So here's my thinking. I'm gonna give you a little bit of an overview, then my opinion, okay? So I read through the newsletter. Newsletter is a great grassroots, community-based thing. Does exactly what you need it to do. It gives a lot of different folks a voice. It allows them to communicate what we need to tell people. That's all good. Right? Here's my challenge. This is an affluent community. I'm concerned about our putting out a community-based newsletter from the township full of advertising. And the advertising dollars are not going to move the needle whatsoever. And I went through this on the school board when we said we have to discover alternative revenue streams. So we went ahead and started taking and advertising, doing different things at the football stadium, at different stuff that generated like $25,000 in a $75 million budget. And frankly, it looked like crap. Okay, it looked cheap and tawdry and low end, a lot like the people who work in some functions of the school district. I talk about a lot of people, but just the way some people want to do their jobs, and it was a politically motivated thing. Okay? I don't think here for this township, we need to have that same kind of image. great having a newsletter. I don't know what your deal is with the third party using to produce the newsletter, which I'm sure they're making money off of the advertising. But I really recommend that we look at that model and say to ourselves, A, do we need advertising to sustain it and sustain the township? I don't think the answer to that is yes. B, again, if we want to use it as a way to communicate to the citizenry, let's just get the message out and not worry about a couple $1,000 literally that we'd probably pick up in advertising. So that's my fundamental opinion about it. And please.
That's good. Rich, do you know, is the relationship with the third-party vendor such that we contract with them for 100% and any advertising that's generated becomes an offset that the township gets effectively a rebate on?
That is my understanding.
Yeah.
So the revenue isn't to actually generate additional revenue for the township. It is just to offset the cost of the newsletter.
Right,
That makes
okay.
sense. Now, what are we paying those guys a year to do that?
It all depends on page.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, but I assume it's not a high cost item.
It is not one of the biggest
Okay,
line items in the budget,
Yeah,
if that's what
yeah.
you're getting at. It's relatively small. I want to say it's approximately $20,000 a year for.
Okay. so
All of
the
that.
offset it's going to cost us $20,000 whether we take advertising or not. So if we do take advertising, it may cost us $17,000,
Correct.
give or take.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um,
I agree with what you're saying. If we're saying that communicating with the residents is important, then we should be paying for it, and is there a conflict? Somebody's advertising with the township, does that imply that there's?
Yes.
uh,
Yeah, there's a
Even-
subjective element to it.
Even if it's not, there is that, I better buy an ad in this magazine.
And then we get into the dance, well, are they a vendor of the township?
Yep.
And then the fun begins.
Well, I equate it a little bit back in the day when I had a lot more hair and certainly a lot more attitude. I was involved in a number of beer businesses in and around the area. And we went out of our way to buy advertising in every church, because it is Delaware County after all. Every church, and we bought a big ad in the back of that.
Yeah.
Because we knew what would happen if we didn't, and what would happen from the top of that parish down if we did not do that.
Right.
So,
They were more blatant.
correct. There's a little more of a direct relationship there, but where I'm going with this though is as we evaluate stuff like this, I think it's just important for us to have a direct communication piece without anything getting in the way. I know the value of advertising. I spent my entire career in communications, but my recommendation, I recommend that this come from us out to the supervisors, is that we take no advertising. And, again, for the budget size we have, the couple of $1,000 will not make a difference.
Yeah, the
And I think
perception,
it'll enhance it.
the
There
perception.
was a
issue.
discussion of this, 2 or 3 meetings back, and the supervisors. And, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
If it's important, we'll find the money to do it. Maybe it doesn't have to be glossy, but it's got to be, meaningful. And again, going back to goals, somehow measurable. If we're going to spend $25,000, are we getting something for that $25,000? But I think it is crucial. People don't know what the township's doing. Taxes are going up.
Yep.
There's a lot of
A
misinformation.
lot of misinformation.
So what's the right way to make that recommendation, Rich? Since our supervisors are not here, how do we make sure the message gets
That's right.
across?
Anyway,
Well, this last meeting, the recommendation of this board
Yeah.
was presented by the township manager as, here is a recommendation from your finance committee.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it was presented.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's-
we
that's how
I think we made a motion,
Right.
and it's a township manager will.
So are you guys okay with us creating a motion and a recommendation? Okay. All right, so let me phrase this real quick. May I have a motion, please, to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the township newsletter go out without any advertising or other messages from businesses? That makes sense for a motion? May want anything? All right, so may I have a motion to accept that motion?
Who moved?
Second,
Second,
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, said motion goes up 5-0. Rich, you'll carry our water on it.
Yes, sir.
And if anybody wants me to attend a township meeting to discuss that with the supervisor, I'd be happy to do that.
No, that's good.
So to that end, the other piece of it is the, how do we use the newsletter?
Well, hold on, I want to
Yeah,
stay
please.
with the 8.1 first.
Okay.
When I read that, I was thinking, well, what are we talking about in terms of the revenue model? Are we talking about the 2022 budget revenue? What exactly, by the use of the term revenue model, what are we getting?
Oh, that was
That's
me.
the
That was my line.
advertising.
So obviously, really, my thing is,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
just strictly advertising. I was thinking more in terms of, for those folks who don't come to the supervisors meetings, but but complain, is it appropriate to use the newsletter to put in on a quarterly basis, a quick snapshot? One small box, revenue, expense.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and
Yeah, like almost a mini version of what we get here,
Correct.
like
that's,
a year-to-date model. Yeah.
yeah, that is, I think that's a great idea. I can include that in there. I don't need a motion from the board.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, if you're looking at transparency of things, great idea, number one. Why isn't that up on our website as well? Prominently, when people, and I'm not asking.
No, I
I'm not
understand you
challenging.
get buried in the details, but you need somewhere
Yeah,
where there's a
up,
quick highlight. You
again,
have the 10 seconds of someone's attention.
Yeah.
And they're not going to drill down.
give them the above the fold of peach to it. Yeah. So I think the more we communicate and the more transparent we are about things, the more prominent we are about things. Now, do you have a communications committee driving a newsletter?
We do not. We have a third part, we have
So,
contracts
so,
with a
so the
party.
third party is just a function of what you guys tell them to execute.
Correct.
Wasn't there a thought of getting a marketing/communications committee in place?
There was.
But it just
was
never
in
got
the-
any juice.
Yeah, it was in the 2021 budget.
But I think
Yes.
it got pulled with the
And
pandemic.
the pandemic, there was some, hiring freezes, things along
Mhm.
those lines. And then I believe during that process, this third party contacted us. She was familiar with other municipalities and we went with the third party.
Got it.
There is another avenue that I haven't seen used for finances. You probably all get is it called At Home or something? The email blast from the township. This road's closed.
Yes, yeah.
Why couldn't a quarterly or finance piece go back? No,
Good idea.
I mean, people may or may not open that,
Well, let's
but
face
it's,
it.
we're
Yeah.
reaching out.
Yeah, there's some people that throw the paper stuff away. They
Yeah.
only go to get their information online.
That email list that you have, do you know how broad it is?
That one I do not.
You have to sign up. for
Yeah,
it. You
yeah,
have to
yeah.
buy
Because
in.
So I'm just curious because I think that,
Well, that raises an even better question. I
Yeah.
apologize.
yeah, please.
Why don't we have in the newsletter that everybody gets how to sign up for that communication piece? So we can ultimately wean people off the paper and onto the electronic digital version.
You're exactly right. And that way we can communicate more, because let's face it, the people who are getting that type of email blast are truly interested in what's going on.
And there may be something that comes out that's important that you don't want to wait for the next quarterly.
Yeah.
You want to get something out.
Yeah, the road's closed.
Correct.
Yeah.
I do a email blast for the Historical Society, and I'm sure the township has to have the capability. I'll send out 100. I can go back in and see how many were actually
Yeah,
open.
sure.
Yeah, oh, yeah. You
You know,
can track.
I don't know that you actually read it, but at least you clicked on
You
it.
can also determine how long it was open.
Yeah, well, I don't-
Whether or
I'm
not
sure
they
my
opened it,
software does that.
erased it,
Yeah.
or they left it, or.
But I think, that, but
Yeah,
you got the at home, Valley Ford, bridge is closed.
Yeah, yeah.
And It's just one more, and there's no cost to that.
Right, that's
I
what
mean,
I'm getting
yeah,
at versus incurring the hard copy printing cost. There's something important that needs to go out. It may go
Even
into the
about this
newsletter later.
quarterly report on finance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody is interested, they're gonna click on it.
Again, it's all about transparency. and
Absolutely.
So by the way, that Valley Forge Bridge, I'm convinced, I don't care what it was anarchists. Okay?
I think it
You can
was,
say whatever you
I
want.
think it was a colonial revolution.
Uh-huh. Okay? The Luddites are back. They have no interest in all this new technology we have going on like bridges. I will continue. So the last thing about that is like, I'm going to expand on this topic a wee bit only because I'm just expanding the remit of it. As you may be aware, Niche, which is a very questionable source of data, came out yesterday with the best suburbs to retire in, best cities to retire, and they always come out with the best place to live in such and such area.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about communications and packaging and things like that, yeah, we as a community never appear on a list of places you want to live in the Philadelphia area. Okay. Obviously, because I live here, people were saying, I don't want to live anywhere near.
I'm Groucho Marx.
When my neighbors go to sell their houses, they have to disclose that I live in the neighborhood. Yeah. But, when we talk about communications and packaging the township up and things like that, we as a township, and I guess, we could talk about this since we're a finance/strategy arm. What does the township need to do to enhance its image to places that care about things like that? Because cities that are on those, towns that are on those lists have improving, like Rose Valley, for example, has always been referred to as the best place to live in the area. Okay. I never thought a place that was 10 minutes from Chester was a great place to live. But I've always had this aura of it being that way. Okay. We live 20 minutes from Chester. So my point is, what do we need to do? What can we do as a township to enhance our standing?
Yeah, that's something I'm gonna have to look into. I don't know the answer to
Oh,
that.
and I didn't expect you to have an
Yeah,
answer.
right off the top of
And
my
the
head,
question
but-
is that something we can address as a finance committee? Because frankly, I don't think we have any other committees to address that.
Something I can look into.
Yeah, and maybe make it an agenda item for the next
How
meeting.
does it impact finance?
What's that?
We have a narrow focus here.
Well, I guess what you can say arguably is that if we improve the values of the houses in the community, it's a very long stretch. I'm trying to build that bridge to that.
Yeah, there's
But you
no,
make a valid
and
point.
just
there.
thinking about the township and the configuration of the committees. There's no committee that I can envision that would really own promotion.
Correct. There's no marketing committee for the
Correct.
township.
There's no promotional in any of the committees.
Unless there was a communication person.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That would be the owner.
And the one thing that we can take advantage of, and one thing for the township to think about is, you put together, you have a finance committee, you have a lot of different committees, and a lot of groups doing great work. My background has always been in building businesses. We have no one or no committee in charge of building Newtown Square.
That's
Right.
correct.
We have ad hoc third parties, but they're focused on small retail
And
businesses.
they do what we
Yeah,
told them.
and they do a fine job of driving people to buy things. But, leveraging this asset as a place that people want to come and live and enhancing its overall image in the area, I think is a significant thing that we need to consider.
Rich, there's a statement someplace, either in the township mission or in somebody that actually expresses that to make Newtown a place that people want to be.
Yeah.
It's the
But
strategic
I'll
plan.
give you the counter side of that. There's a lot of residents who don't want any more people coming.
Yeah, but the horse
know,
is out of the
You know, I
barn.
think more the issue
development
is to
that's
tell
happening.
the residents, hey, you're living in it.
Mhm.
Now, if there's the side piece that, we get on somebody else's list, that's good. But, and maybe that would be, if we do a better job telling the residents about why you're living in a good
Mhm.
place, that can easily.
No, that's a valid point. And again, it's not about telling people that other places are bad, even though I enjoyed it. It's more about, this is a really this is a great place to live. But we never show up in any of those lists.
No.
And purely from a township ego perspective, and egos of people who live here.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with us being regarded as a great place to live.
Some context
but-
around that, at least at the school district level, on that they discovered that the niche rankings for the school district rely very heavily on reviews. So there was a
Very
push
much.
by I think some members of the school board or administration to have parents and people that live in the school district to post positive reviews to boost the score, with the understanding that, what it is, what it is. I mean, you're using parents to help boost your score, but at the same time, so are other school districts and
Everybody's doing.
yeah, so, I'm not sure if it's the same for the
No,
niche
it's-
ranking
but
that
it's
you
similar,
saw.
though. You know,
Maybe
you're right.
maybe
And-
there's reviews.
And it's not even that, it's even down to when Philadelphia Magazine writes a story, the best suburbs to live in. Stuff like that happens. This is not a perfect place, and no city is a perfect place, but, is there a way we can raise our profile? And to your point, sitting on the school board as long as I did, one of the things that drove me crazy was the level of mediocrity that people considered the school district.
Amen.
Drove me nuts. And it was, a lot of it's self-imposed.
Yes.
And it's changing the tone and the tenor of how you do things. Now, to your point, it is a stretch for a finance committee to get involved in that. However, in lieu of anything else, how do you drive stuff? And I look at it as, what's the best way for the township to raise its profile? The higher profile the township has, the better position we are as a place to live. Because to your point, if you spend time on certain Facebook pages, the message is, my God, you've ruined my town.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, if you drive down Westchester Pike from Broomall, you realize that not much of Westchester Pike has changed until you cross over 252.
When you drive from Newtown.
I've got to go.
When you've crossed the line.
Absolutely.
There's in both directions.
Yeah.
It's instant, whether it's, the blow up sign or there's a change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay.
One of the things that I've heard mentioned on this topic, I've heard it stated repeatedly, that the realtors point to Newtown as being a very desirable area to live. Well, what are they using? In fact, if that's true, and then what are they using as objective measure? If I'm a potential home buyer, well, why are you taking me to Newtown versus Middletown versus Edgemont versus Westchester? What's the criteria? What's the affirmative criteria that you're using to steer me and make the representation that Newtown is at the top?
That's a really good point. And arguably, that's where the bloom is on the housing sales side.
Right.
And we're joking I'm on my homeowners board, my little,
God help you.
and our biggest celebrity just moved out. Marshmallow, the DJ, they moved. So we're losing that $25 million a year in revenues out of my business. We just got Mike Barkan left. We're nervous, but.
I'm losing.
That's classic.
But my point is, excuse me, what's the allure? Why here? Why not somewhere else? Especially.
And not
when-
us promoting ourselves. We can't promote it. That, to me, that's the same thing as soliciting advertisers for the magazine, for the newsletter.
Especially since we're bumping up against the main line,
Of course.
and that's the trade-off. How do we make that happen?
So that is something that I can get back with the staff as well as the third party
Yeah,
and see if we can see, one, if they have any experience in something like that. I believe that the third party would probably have some experience in something along those lines, but I can report back at the next meeting on
awesome.
that.
Thank you. You're just really happy Steven's not here, aren't you?
I would have about 8 more assignments.
Yeah, we're going easy on you.
Okay, do you want to talk about your draft?
Sure.
Has
Rich
everybody had a chance to read it, by the way?
Rich asked me to consider drafting something for consideration for the newsletter, for the next issue of the newsletter. Just to come out of the gate with the finance committee's submission, similar to trails and greenways and the other, various other committees. So I approached it kind of open-ended and then, drifted into what I think is the most relevant financial topic today, and that's the stormwater issue. Subsequent to me putting this out, Lisa, Steve, Rich, and I had a meeting on Friday, our subcommittee meeting on stormwater. And we had a fairly good give and take. That a identification of the issue has been out in the Board of Supervisors since fourth quarter of last year, maybe third quarter of last year. But with the delivery of the document in the public record that was put together with the township and the engineer, we now have dollar estimates. And so I incorporated that in here, which then raised the question, well, how much information is it appropriate to put out there? And without necessarily hiding information, but more, how does the township, has the Board of Supervisors want to handle this, since it will become quite a hot potato? And so we didn't resolve that issue, but our sixth sense, I think, from the four of us was, we're too far out in the open on this that we can't really go back on. Without getting into, and then, as I said in my email, I have no pride in authorship. People can pick it apart, but is this appropriate to head down this road and to be this open about the issue? So with that, I'm going to open it up.
No, I think it's great. I think it's exactly what we need to do, because two things about it. One is we need to, I think, no disrespect to any other committees, but the finances of the township are paramount and should be communicated often and prominently in that newsletter.
Look like a good chair of the finance.
No, it's really something we need to do. And that's why I wanted this agenda item on this, because we need to have our stuff out there. And I know someone reached out back at the end of the year, we didn't have much to say. But knowing that the supervisors and their primary remit is the finances of the community. Our job is to talk about the underlying stuff around that.
Yeah.
Right. So if we come out with either a recurring topic, of which this is going to become a common one, or ones that become more prominent. I know, for example, Lisa, at the end of last year, you were working around strategic spending and stuff like that. So as we come up with those, I'm not going to say special projects, but those different elements, we need to make people aware of what's going on. And this is going to be the most important thing the township undertakes for a few years now coming up. So I think it's appropriate. What you wrote was very good, by the way. I don't want to be your 8th grade English teacher, but you did a fine job getting the point across and let everybody know what's going on. I think
That's what I was trying to do, is write it for an 8th grade.
well, yeah, that's good too. Speaking of the township and the community, right? No, but I think that the approach we're taking, it's exactly what we need to do.
I'm always in favor of way more openness, but I guess I don't understand, what's the concern, openness concern? They're putting too much information out there in what sense? The more information we put out there is for the better.
Well, I think it will do, it will draw people's ire. But when you look at it, you say, but that's just hiding the problem.
Mhm.
And the problem is there. There was another failure at our meeting on Friday. There was another failure at the bottom of Media Line Road when you go down in the back, down below the green drop. There was another failure there that just happened.
Okay.
So it's happening. So.
But you weren't getting any pushback from someone not to disclose.
Oh, no, no.
Oh, okay. I couldn't-
No.
We just want the
no.
advantage of the.
But
yeah.
what I don't want to have happen is I don't want to blindside the supervisors, where they may say, okay, we can put out information, but is this the venue to do that? Or do they want this information to come out in another venue? Do they want to control the information discussion about the stormwater? I wasn't sure.
That's a valid point, but I don't think you're going to be breaking news with this. I think it's going to be stuff that they're already discussed. I don't pay much attention to the supervisors meetings until I read the minutes.
Yeah.
So, go
Well,
ahead.
to that end, then why don't we vote a motion to present this thing to the supervisors for their approval to put in the newsletter and then.
Yes, that's, now,
Well, that's what I was envisioning,
Yeah.
subject to edits of people besides my typo.
do,
of the
do,
date.
do the supervisors review all the content, or is that you and Stephen's role, or Stephen's role?
I know Stephen, at least,
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Steve would.
I believe it does go to the supervisors beforehand, but I can't.
Yeah,
guarantee-
and
can't
I also
guarantee.
get your point, they're not gonna, they may not read the newsletter before it's published, which is fine. But worst case, Stephen reviews it and says, hey, guys, this is too early,
Mhm.
or, correct that typo.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. The only open question that I have with this was on the cover of my email communication. Whether or not the township wants, or the Board of Supervisors needs or should put up a repository of public information regarding stormwater. And if so, where should that be? Should that be under its own setting, or it should be under finance? Who's gonna own that from a communications perspective?
I think that is a great idea going forward, somehow identified on the website, and anything you put out, it has a link
That's
to that.
public, that's approved as being
Yeah,
public.
yeah.
Yeah, like like Eileen's budget estimate.
Because it's going to be that significant a topic that it
Well,
needs.
it's not gonna
its own-
end tomorrow.
And, as far as what you've written, it could go out, it doesn't have to go, if they're not comfortable that it's coming from the finance committee, it could come from the Board of Supervisors.
Sure,
They could have the name at the bottom.
sure.
We don't care.
I'm-
What's important is the message goes out.
And I think stormwater actually crosses a lot of these different committees.
Yeah. You're right, you got your file.
I mean, we're not, our committee isn't dealing with stormwater itself. Like, we're
No.
just, we have
Funding
a
of-
very
yes.
narrow
Right.
focus,
Funding
which is
of
the
the stormwater.
funding.
We're
of-
involved because the
Has to
money's
pay.
involved.
But it gets back to, it's either gonna be our committee or it's gonna be Public Works. One or the other is gonna really kind of own this, so that's really
Yeah.
a decision, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Well, no, I agree, and B, there are no bad ideas. So if they want to jump on this along with us,
You
great.
take it, great.
Yeah.
Will. Yeah. As
Because-
long as it's out there.
Yeah.
See, my whole thing is, if it involves a dollar sign, it involves this committee.
Yeah.
So then by that, what you've done is appropriate.
If we have to push, that's okay.
Yeah.
We have to lead, that's okay.
All right, so subject to getting resolution, and I think this should go to the Board of Supervisors to make a decision regarding the repository of public documents regarding stormwater. And subject to any other edits that folks want to pass along, I would make a motion that this document be submitted to the Board of Supervisors for approval for release in the upcoming township newsletter.
Great. May I have a motion to accept that motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All right, all in favor? Opposed? All right, 5-0. Great job.
Good.
Glad you did that. And I think we have some good content, and I think that we need to have, and I think my recommendation, Rich, off of this as well, is that we need it as a finance functionary, we need to have something, if not monthly, or is it a monthly newsletter or is it bi-monthly?
Quarterly.
That's
Quarterly,
It's
okay.
quarterly.
Because it so came to my head when I received it recently. That's why I think that if it's a quarterly newsletter, we need to have something from the finance committee on a quarterly basis.
Which could get back to the goals.
Yes. Yeah, communicate on a quarterly basis by the newsletter.
Right.
Because once a month from us may be overkill, but it's not a once a month newsletter. If it's quarterly, it's one of those things that it's more than appropriate for us once a quarter to say, hey, here's what's going on in the budgeting process. The budget's been approved. Here's a special thing about stormwater,
And going back to what Ed said, there's starting to be an accumulation of documents. Eileen, there's the listing that.
Yeah, all the projects.
It's a public record.
Yeah.
It's been
Correct. It was
presented as a
presented
board of
as-
supervisors.
Correct.
Put it in one place. I don't have to, wait, what meeting did they discuss
That's
that?
correct.
You
That's
know,
correct.
all that.
The other thing is, it has to be dated because it's going to
Yeah, 'cause-
change.
because it is dated.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we've discussed this. You need to have additional columns for what was the bid and what was the final cost. This, the whole, that control document needs to be dramatically.
And now, here's a key question for you, Rich. When it comes to the website,
Mhm.
do you own all things finance related? Or someone else own the website and you give them stuff to post for you?
Who controls?
Steve?
No, I can post anything. I have the ability to do anything on the website that I get approval to do on the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for us to recommend that stuff like this has a section and is cataloged appropriately and posted appropriately? Is that something for us to do as well?
So I don't think I have direction from this, from the
Okay, so you
board.
take it that way?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have direction that we kind of need to find out where who's gonna own a stormwater page. I think there's clear direction that there needs to be a home for stormwater. I think the first thing we need to figure out is which committee is going to own it, and if there needs to be a joint committee, for
Okay.
example, like Alex said, we are in charge of predominantly the financing of the stormwater problem, but somebody like the EAC or one of those committees may be
yeah.
involved from the actual stormwater issues itself.
Okay, so direction is all you need.
Yep, that's all I need for that.
To know how formal you want to make it.
Yep.
So let's transition into older business. then.
Yeah,
This is
old
the stormwater
business,
update.
right. Follow to our meeting, Lisa, from last Friday. We are continuing to gather data regarding revenue. We're focused on the question of revenue. The next plan of action is, we've determined that a neighboring township, Middletown Township, is ahead of us. They are pursuing this project using a fee structure. The other option would be using some form of tax or some hybrid variation thereof. We've made no formal decisions regarding one for the other. We're just trying to gather what the available options possibly could be, what the advantages and disadvantages would be, and then come back to this committee with, this is kind of our findings of what we've discovered. The plan in the next step is that we're going to have a meeting with a representative from Middletown Township, as well as the township solicitor. So together we can sit down and kind of punch holes in or get more empirical information regarding the various options, so that we don't end up going down a rabbit hole and 6 months later realize we can't do something. Yes, to the extent we can. So that's where we stand. I believe we've got a tentative date, Rich, for April 7th.
7th, yes. you are
Lisa,
correct.
7th,
Yep.
yes?
That's right.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a tentative meeting for April 7th that we're going to huddle with those other parties and to push on where we go.
Great. Any other stormwater issues?
I got one piece of old business. I just wanted, we were gonna get an update from Rich and Steve. At the last meeting, we talked about payments in lieu of taxes. We got
Yes.
the list. And you guys were gonna reach out to the township solicitor. So what happened with that?
So we brought that motion to the Board of Supervisors. The
Right.
Board of Supervisors agreed, and we are passing it on to the solicitor. At this
Thank
point, it is going to be in the solicitor's hands, but they took this board's recommendation and approved it.
But we have value. Look at that, guys. That's twice I actually did something we recommended we did. I said we have a party. We can make it part of our offsites.
Yep.
So,
And I will put that under old business for the next meeting to have
That'd
a
be good.
formal where we're actually
Yeah.
at. with that- in that process.
keep pilot on the old business
Gotcha.
agenda until it resolves
Yeah.
itself. Anything else, Lisa? You got anything? John? John's still there.
John dropped off. Yep, I'm good. Everything sounded good.
Great.
All right, guys. Any items for the next agenda? I think the process we have is great that, Stephen's coming out and recommending, hey, a week before the meeting, everybody having because we have a timing issue with agenda items. So, we have 3 things come up on new business. I think they're appropriate things. So as we, as you get ideas or, we can't do the ad hoc things we'd like to do offline, which is fine with me, but as long as we identify stuff up front, it's good.
Keeping with my favorite theme, that if you could just on the old business, when we do stormwater, just call it stormwater financing. Something like that.
Yeah. Because we're not a structural engineer.
Correct. If you want the bridge to
Because the
fall
next
down,
thing you know,
hire
somebody's
us.
gonna show up for public comment and go,
Yeah.
why aren't you addressing my
This,
street?
why is my street ranked 27th?
We'll get that corrected moving forward.
Well, because Marshmallow moved up the street. All right, any public comment online, nobody in person? Okay, I close this meeting adjourned. See you next month, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Good day.
See you, Lisa.